We're going to just do it. Hi! We're here, and I'm getting all kinds of warning signals from all over. Alrighty, whatever. StreamYard and technical difficulties, but we'll figure it out, and we're here. So thank you if you managed to find me. That's great. If you're not, go to YouTube, Andrew Martin Design. It's going to be there. It's supposed to be on LinkedIn, but apparently it's not. So you know what? We might have to do this again. So we'll just take this as a beta test one. Oh, technology's lovely. When it works.
It's working at Wednesday, like you said.
Oh, and this is what happens when you run your own business and stuff doesn't work. You have to just go and try it and figure it out. And so it's all good. Learning. Alrighty, so today is the first episode of my Working at Wednesday. I've been doing little, motivational posts all over Facebook and social media for about a year now. And when I did my talk show last summer, it was great, lots of fun. I had a blast with a lot of interesting ladies, but I kind of thought there was a lot of businessy stuff that was coming up. And I thought, you know what, let's just go ahead and run this and we'll put some business stuff up there. Okay. So I'm just trying to put hand cream on because my hands are really dry and I can't get my ring off my finger. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Already. This is Andrea's thought process. It's like squirrel. It's like, it's all over the place. Alrighty. So I decided to ask a bunch of women if they wanted to be on, and the lady who we're going to talk to first has known me almost as long, or probably longer than my family, but she's the one who's known me just about
not quite, but almost.
All the dark, dirty secrets and all the good stuff too. So Kirsten Fry has been in my life for, do I have to say it? Yeah,
far too long. Just say far too long.
We look good for plethora of decades, shall we say? But that's okay. That's what we're here for. And we're going to get to know her a little bit better about her business. And specifically, she's started a couple of different businesses since I've known you, like different career changes, and how she got to where she is today, and any kind of information that she can kind of help us along the way with people that are in a similar situation. Okay, so we're just going to do this meeting because people are probably watching, but they can't comment. So we're just going to go through this. Alrighty, so just tell me a little bit about the business that you have now, because it's Kirsten Fry, TLC, Transitions Life Coaching, and she's a certified grief recovery specialist. So lots of big words. She does lots of things. So what is the business today that you're focusing on wanting people to know about?
So today, it's been an evolution, as you know, and it's actually gone through my whole career leading me up to this point, because for the majority of it, I had a job, just like most people, a career in policing, also a career as a personal trainer and holistic nutritionist. So it's only been in the last handful of years that I've been an entrepreneur and doing my own thing. And like you said, we evolve and grow as we go through that. So currently, Transitions Life Coaching is truly that. I'm a transformational life coach. I guide and help people that are going through transitions and changes, maybe even losses in their life right now, and helping them navigate those changes in as healthy and as a wholehearted a way as possible. And a big part of that work is actually the grief recovery work. And I am a certified specialist with the Grief Recovery Institute of the United States, because what I was finding in my work with people in terms of the life coaching piece, and really wanting people to, people that wanted to really expand who they were and what they were doing in their lives, whether it was business or personally, and really envisioning a life that they really loved. We would get to a point where some of my clients were able to manifest exactly what they were looking for, or a large majority of it. And then other people were really getting stuck or finding that they were sabotaging themselves a lot. And what I found, working with them and also through my own experience, was that oftentimes there's an unresolved loss or grief, that we have unresolved emotions attached to these losses that we sometimes are unknowingly holding on to. And the problem with that is you can't move into a new future holding on to the emotions of the past. And so that's why
I want to just pause there, because I know that when you first started this and we started going through, I'm just going to take one of my earphones out because this is just way too loud and it's hurting my ears. That you were explaining to me that grief is not just grieving the death of some person in your life, which is what typically most of us tend to think grief is. Grief, you were explaining to me, was a loss of anything. pretty much. It was a situation that you don't want to be in, that is causing you distress, it's causing you negative emotions, and you have to move past it. Even there are people that are in business that have been doing it at a certain level for so long, and now they're moving to the next level. And
Mhm.
even though you're excited to get to the next level, you have to leave something behind to get there. Typically, people or an organization or a lifestyle or whatever it is. And down here, you were comfortable, you knew everything, it was safe, but now you're moving up to the next level, which you really should be super excited about, but you can't understand why you're not happy all the time there. And it's because you've left something behind that was good for you. It's still a loss. It's still something you have to kind of process to get onto the next level. So I wanted people to understand that loss isn't necessarily dealing with death of a person. Loss is just dealing with something that you no longer have, that you did have, that was a happy thing for you. Now there's something missing. That's called grief, and you have to figure out that to move to the next level of happiness, I'm assuming, is that's where you're going with this.
Yeah, and what it is, it's all these conflicting emotions, right? Because we typically think of grief as this really deep sadness that we have when typically,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, someone dies that we care about, or maybe we
Mm-hmm.
go through a divorce. We think about it from that perspective. But it's exactly like you said, it's just even when we transition into the next phase of our life, or the next
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for ourselves in lives, where, like you said, it's conflicting because we are excited on one level, or what this means for our family, financially, for yourself, like you finally get to live your
Mm-hmm.
dream and all those things. But like you said, we're missing out now on all those relationships that we had with people that we've worked with all these years, the
Yes.
routine that we used to do. We've identified ourselves in a certain way. Like for me, coming from a background in policing, because when you meet people, what's the first thing they say? They ask you, what do you do for work?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you'll say, I'm a doctor, I'm a,
Are you married? Do you have kids? What do you do? Like that's the trifecta, right? It's not like,
exactly.
are you
And
happy?
so, yeah. And so it's not just it, and that's why I think so many people misunderstand grief, because it's all these unresolved emotions that we have,
Yeah.
not just with a loss, but when there's a change, or even just a transition in our familiar way of being.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like, look at us, like we both have university students who have just finished, and
Yeah.
now looking into that transition of moving into like a career, and what do I want to do for my life, and it's
Yeah.
huge for
Yeah.
them and it's exciting. But they've also, and this is the sadness about COVID that we've had, is that all these rituals and ceremonies and celebrations that we would normally have that would honor those times that we're finishing before we move
Give
forward,
you
we're
a
not going to.
place to put all that, give you a place to put that emotion so that you could kind of sort of deal with it and then move on to the next. You have to have
Yeah.
you have to have, like you said, honor. You have to have a thing to do, a ritual, a thing to do that marks the stopping of one and the starting of something else.
Yeah,
And they
and
don't have that. Yeah.
right, and so a lot of people are missing out on that in work. Our
Mm-hmm.
students are missing it out on their graduations. People are missing out on
Mm-hmm.
funerals, like all those deep, big markers for us that allow us to come together and get the
Yeah.
support and the love, and being able to express how we feel about those things coming to an end before we move on to the next thing. We're missing that right now. And
Yeah.
so people, we adapt to that. We're like, okay, well, it could always be worse, and we move on to the next thing. But the reality is that until you're emotionally complete with what's happening in your life,
Yeah.
whatever those stages are in your life, we will carry that with us forward,
Yeah.
and that can
And
be
you
a
don't make
barrier
room for all the good things that are coming your way.
because you're
All
not
right.
making space for that. Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions about being a business person. Now that we know what you
Yeah.
do and how you help people with business person. So, um, as a business owner, when you started out, and I'm sure a lot of things have changed, how you done something, but you know, w- how did this idea come from? I mean, you were in policing, and then you were into personal training, from what I know, and then you went into life coaching, and then you went into this. So that's a shift, like policing to personal training. I mean, I know that because you've always been a very athletic and very physical person. So that was a natural evolution because you did a lot
Mhm.
of that to keep yourself in shape for policing. You've always done that since I've known you. You're always into sports and everything when we knew each other in high school. Yeah, that's how long we've known each other. So just, yeah, that's a plethora of decades. I wasn't lying there. So, but you went from that into life coaching, and then, like you said, you found something missing in life coaching, so then you got into grief recovery. But how did you go from that to that? Like, how did that lead you to get into that business? Where were you?
The way that I look at it is that policing really gave me my foundation. It started off, it's been sort of my own journey too, where it started off as like a stability, a security, justice, like it was my way of contributing in the world in a way that was meaningful for me. And so I loved my work in policing. And it also allowed me, I grew up in policing. I started at 21, so I was young. And so you really develop and grow as a person. And so my communication, I would say my communication style and being able to hold space for people who are in difficult, painful, and maybe even sometimes tragic situations. I learned to be able to do that. So I can hold space in those dark spaces where a lot of people are really uncomfortable with. Moving into personal training and nutrition, it was like moving from that sort of like society, justice, security, stability into like helping people really get strong and healthy in their bodies and how good that feels. And that gives you the energy to do all these other things. But in my career there, and both those careers were extremely successful, there was always this calling for me for something more, because with my clients that I worked with in personal training, I got to know them intimately. Like sometimes better than they knew their families knew them. And so the realization came that the physical component is definitely connected to what's happening mentally and emotionally with ourselves. So I was coaching people beyond personal training, like life coaching people sort of just as a natural thing. And so I've taken
cared for them.
And because I've taken a big leap a couple of times, so a big leap out of policing, which, is security and pension and all the good things, into personal training, and then making the really big leap into becoming an entrepreneur was huge. It was a big step, and it was crazy, but also amazing because I knew there was something calling me to do more. Like it was like, there was more that you can be doing here. And I've learned that when I feel that restless feeling, that is my calling, that it is on time to move on to that next stage. So the coaching, I really was into the mindset and envisioning and creating a life that we love through clarity and intention, emotion, and inspired action. And that's where these questions kept coming up, because people knew the things they could or should be doing, but it wasn't happening. So where was this barrier? And so that's where grief kind of came into it for me with that. And having gone through my own sort of radical experience at that same time, I did my own deep dive into unresolved grief and loss that I had had through a lifetime. And it was through that work that I was like, that was my missing puzzle piece. So it's part of the coaching. I still do all that coaching and mindset and really having people live the life that they love, but we can't do that if we're still holding on to things from the past. And sometimes it's unconsciously.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna ask a couple more questions here. So how do you define success as a business partner? Because that's really big, because you do a lot of these the coaching things that I've done for myself in the last couple of years and the different groups that I belonged with, there is a lot of emphasis on a dollar amount, your yearly goals, and how do you get there, and how do you break down the yearly goal to the monthly goal, to the weekly goal, to the daily goal. And a lot of it is reminiscent of when I worked in retail. You had all these sales targets, which I hated. Just the term sales target just, causes me to itch, because I don't consider myself a salesperson. I've never liked sales. Sales to me is kind of a dirty word, because it's like you're sort of forcing something on somebody that they didn't ask for. And that's not what I want to do. Helping somebody or solving a problem or customer service is they've come to you with an issue, you give them a solution. If that ends up being a monetary transaction, awesome. But that's what I'm more built with. So how do you define success? Because I know that I don't specifically just define success as a dollar value. And I don't know, when you go out there in the business world and you deal with business coaches and you deal with different organizations, a lot of emphasis is on making money, which, I mean, face it, we're not doing this for free. But what else is there? I mean, is that part of your definition of success for a business person? I mean, it might be. There's nothing wrong with that. I just want to, what is your take on it?
So I have to admit, I've often not felt part of some of those networking groups for specifically that reason, because my motivation isn't primarily money. Of course, making funds enough so that we can continue to do the work that we do. That's what's important for me, right? So how I would define that, it's a really good question, is that it's really having the freedom and the means to live and work in a way that aligns with my core values. And that's what it
Which
is.
are
It's
what?
so
What are your core values?
so for me, it's always about integrity, number one.
Oh, yes.
And it's about being of service. And I realize now that even as we're having this
Yes.
conversation, my whole career, whether it was in policing or nutrition or training or now coaching, has always been one of service. And I
Yes.
love that. I love being of service. And that is it for me. So it's about integrity. It's about being of service. Balance is a big thing. And that doesn't mean you're going to be balanced all the time, but it's just being from an overall perspective, having some balance in your life. Coming from a place of curiosity is important. And I think more so now that you're
a
as an,
lifelong learner.
yeah.
Every I can't even tell you how many times it'd be like, oh, I'm doing this course this weekend, or I'm doing this retreat this weekend, or I booked for this. And I'm like, what are you doing all this stuff for? Just because I like it. And I think it's interesting. Alrighty then, you go. Yeah, you've always been super curious and always asked questions and always wanted to go places and get answers from things. Yeah, lots of different places.
And the last piece I would add in just real quick, and it's one that's I've only come up from since starting this, my own entrepreneurial sort of adventure, is joy. And that was a piece that was missing for me for a lot of years. And so actually grief recovery helped me be able to make that space for joy. Because for a lot of times it was like, I was good with this much, but not like this much, because you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And, there were reasons why
You know what?
I felt like that.
Yes. Yes, I got to say that because like I said, I've known you a long time, and there's been, like, I must say, like, we've never really fought. We've never really had like a drag down, yelling, screaming, fighting argument. We're not the kind of people that live in each other's pockets either. You're allowed to be you and I'm allowed to be me, and we go off and do our thing and we come back, and we go off and do our thing and we come back. And I think that's why it's managed to last as long as it has, because I appreciate and respect that you have a different way of dealing with things, and so do I, and there's no criticism there. But yeah, I have noticed a bigger, I'm not going to say awakening because that's not the right term, but maybe an opening, like, a blossoming. Like, I'm going to say that, like, you're bigger now in a different way, if that makes sense. And in the beginning, when it was like that, I kind of thought that maybe you were overboard and we're going to crash into a wall, that it wasn't really real. Like, it was kind of sort of like you were on a high, but I'm like, I'm waiting for her to crash and burn. And then I realized you had the high, you'd already had your crash and burn kind of quietly without anybody knowing. And now this was, oh, okay, so she's already done that. Cool. So this is good. I don't have to worry about her anymore. Cause I was like, this is just, she's on this high, and I'm going, yeah, but she hasn't crashed. I didn't know that you'd done the work behind the scenes, because you're a pretty private person when it comes to stuff like that. You want to figure it out on your own, and then you come out and tell everybody. But yeah, I've seen a difference, and like I said, a glow and a happiness and a bigness in a very good way that wasn't always there. Like you said, was there for a little bit, and then it disappeared, and it would come back and it would disappear. And it's, you're a very happy person. You're a very bubbly, happy person, great person to be around. But yeah, you're right. You had moments of having to go away and then coming back, and the happiness and having to go away. And now it's like, you're just here all the bloody time. You never go away, which is good.
And this is what's so great about that, because I recognize, like, a lot of the people that I've worked with along the way, like, even I can look back at my personal training clients and look at my clients now, where it's like, we all have moments like that. And it's not like you're going to be riding the high all the time, but it's like, when you've done you've done the work to see what's holding you back.
Oh,
and then it's not just seeing what's possible for you, because a lot of people can see it, they just don't believe it. And so it's being able to let go of what's holding you back, so that you can truly believe and become what is to be true. Like, we all know that. We all have those dreams and visions for ourselves, and they're not pie in the sky. They are real. It's that inner part of you that's calling to you. It's just, we live in a physical world, and a lot of us have gotten used to not being too much,
Yeah. Okay. So as a business person and dealing with this, because your subject when you talk grief recovery and stuff, like a lot of people will kind of cringe and they don't want to deal with that. Like they don't even
Yep.
want to hear that if you stand up in a room and describe who you are. But as a business person, is there a non-negotiable that you have in how you present yourself as a business person or how you run your business? Like, did you have to sit down and have that? Because I know in the beginning when I was doing all this stuff, like years ago, like 10, 15 years ago, there was a rule where, you don't create a non-negotiable. Like you be open to everything. My mother ran businesses for years. I know people in my family that have had their own businesses, and they basically just said, do everything, be everywhere, and take it all. And I remember way back when it wasn't even fashionable, I was like, I'm not working on Sundays. I don't care what I do. I don't care how it happens. I have kids. I have a husband. That's my non-negotiable. And it was, everybody kept asking, and I was like, no, I don't want to. No, I don't want to. No, I don't want to. And I did lose business, and I didn't get work because I wouldn't do that. And it was just my personal thing that I just felt that was the day of the week that I wanted to just not deal with work stuff. I didn't want to have to make that choice and see the look in my kids' eyes or in my husband's eyes that they weren't worth it. I mean, they were pretty supportive about everything else that I did, but I didn't want to have to always say no. And I just wanted to know that was a non-negotiable that I set up years ago that I still try to practice as much as possible today. When I set up a non-negotiable day, for me, my non-negotiable in my business is I'm a mother first, I'm a wife first, before I'm a business person. And when this is all said and done, this is going to go away one day, but I'm going to have those people in my corner all the time. So if I have to choose between a business decision and a family decision, personally, I always will choose business. And that probably was not a really good thing to say on a business program, but I always will, because that's who I am. And integrity, like you said, is showing up and being who you are. So is there a non-negotiable for you as a business person when you first started out?
Not just when I first started out, but actually it's been more so now that as I've gone through, as I've learned to honor myself. So very much how you honor your family first. For me, it's about honoring myself first. So the first couple hours of every day, and I'm an early riser, is for me. And so that can be a couple of different things. It will be at least one of these things every day. Sometimes it's more, but it's meditation, it's journaling, a gratitude journal, it's personal development reading, or a workout. So typically I'll work out 4 days a week. So that's not every day, but every day there will be some part of that. That's what anchors me to me in the mornings. Like I need to be aligned first and feel like I'm grounded and centered before I start my day, and really to be present for people as I move through, whether it's going to be for my family, whether it's for my clients, whether it's with the companies that I'm dealing with. It always begins with us as business people. Our businesses start with us. So for you, it's your family, and honoring that day of the week, that is a non-negotiable, and that is sacrilege, right? Like that's a sacred time for you. And so my morning time is my sacred time for me, so that then I can, and then depending on whatever the day looks like, because we know it shifts and fluctuates and things happen and don't happen.
You can have stuff scheduled and you can have it ready to go, and you wake up and you hit your phone and it's up. And it's like, okay, so now I think a good non-negotiable, well, I just might, maybe not non-negotiable, but I think a good trick or a tip as a business person is I always talk about being adaptability. And I find that different from flexibility, because flexibility is like your schedule changes, you have to fit it back in. But adaptability is recognizing that you're always going to come up with changing things. And if you don't embrace the change, if you don't embrace trying the change, if you don't embrace adaptability to what's new and exciting, or what's not working, and dumping things that are not working and picking up something that is working, you're you lose your excitement and you lose your joy, but B, you're going to get left behind, and there's going to be nobody knocking on your door. So I talk about adaptability, and I think that's a big thing that entrepreneurs have to have, is embracing adaptability. Adaptability doesn't mean you're not genuine. It doesn't mean you give up everything, but it just means you always have to kind of audit what you're doing and realize what's working and what's not working. And being adaptable, you die or you become a dinosaur, one or the other. That's your choice.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. But you can be adaptable, and you need to be in your business but you're still at the core of your business. So taking care of
Yeah.
yourself and whatever that looks like. So for other people, their routine might look completely different. If for them, it might be at night or midday or however they want to do it. But taking care of yourself in whatever way feels good for you so that you can go out into the world and like shine your bright light and do the work that you've been meant to do, then I think that's, for me, that's a non-negotiable.
Okay, so here's a really good question, because a lot of the people that I meet are women and they have families, and they maybe have not been an entrepreneur since, before they had children, but they've become an entrepreneur since they've had kids, or
Mhm.
maybe their kids have gone. So most of us are family people. We have a family. Even if you've been divorced, you have a family you deal with. So how has being an entrepreneur affected your family life? Because you did say, you were in policing, you were in personal training. Those are, you're an employee for other companies, and there's structure around that. So how
Mhm.
has it, you being an entrepreneur in the last couple of years, how has that affected your family life? Or
Um,
has it?
not so much for me, and I've been fortunate because our sons are the same age, and while they still need you as parents, they're a lot more independent now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have little people where that would take a way more time up, and where there's a lot more
Yes.
talk about having to be adaptable and flexible, because things change, drastically with that. And
Mm.
especially with COVID and everybody doing all this online learning, I can't even imagine what that's
Oh
like right
my
now.
gosh. Like, I think all these parents who are home trying to do their job, and or trying to be able to build a business and dealing with little people, yeah, they need that big vacation. Like, don't give them an award, like send them away. They need to go away. Give them a weekend,
Yeah.
because that's just, I seriously, I don't know how they did. I mean, when my kids were small, I was home. I wasn't running a business. That was hard enough on its own, trying to run the
Yeah.
house. My husband worked all kinds of crazy hours, so a lot of times I was a single parent. I felt like, because it was just me, myself, and I. And that was difficult on its own. And to throw into trying to go to work all the time, or leave a building, or being there, or running a business, like, just, there's no way I don't think I could have done it. So the fact that these women are out there doing it, I'm like, holy moly.
Yeah,
Yes, I mean,
kudos for that, because again, for the same reason that you were saying, like, it's trying to juggle all the things, and there's no separation, especially if you're working from home,
no.
right? And so or if you've had to take a step back in your career, your business, because of COVID. So, for a lot of people there, I think there's a lot more impact on some of these other families. We've been fortunate from that way. Like I said, our sons are sort of up and on their own. They'll still always need us to some degree, but not like little people.
No.
How it has affected me is I have more freedom in terms of being available. So not
Yes.
having to work like I was on shift work as a police officer. I always knew when my shifts were. I could schedule out my year because I knew that. Now I don't really have that unless I'm like really specific about booking that out for myself. But I do have the flexibility that, like, if our neighbor needs our help, that I'm there to help, with her, because she has a
Yes.
small little guy, and being able to help her out is valuable for me. And that's, again, being part of being a contribution, being of service to friends and
Yeah.
family when they need us, not
Yeah.
necessarily when it's convenient for us to do that. So I'm so grateful that I have that availability to do that right now.
That's good. That's very good. All righty. Well, it was 1:33. We'll give a few more minutes, because I did take some time in the beginning trying to figure out all my technical issues with StreamYard.
You did
It's a great
awesome.
service. It's a great service. I got to tweak it, which is great. Okay, last one. If you were to write a book about yourself, what would you name it? And it's a two-minute show.
Oh, yeah. No,
That's a good
actually,
question, isn't it?
it's an
That
awesome
takes some
question.
thoughts. Like, what would you do with that? I wouldn't even know where to begin with that if somebody would ask me that. Like, I
That's
was
a
trying to
really
come up
good
with like
question.
an intro sound or music to play, and I was like, I wouldn't even know. I'm like, this is just way too hard for me. So,
So I'm gonna say, so I've been really lucky. I received one of my very good friends, and someone I did some work with in coaching and grief recovery. She just published her first book, which is amazing.
yes.
And it was so kind of her. She acknowledged me in the book, and I didn't know that that's what was happening, amongst other people, of course. But she's way more poetic than I am. But she had said something about, like, the work that we did with grief recovery and helping her through that. Um, she described it as like having the heart of a sage and the strength of a warrior to help her move through the darkness, so that she had a new understanding of grief as part of the human experience. And I just thought that was so beautiful. So I think if I had to, I'll borrow from her poetic nature and call it the warrior sage.
Ooh, that's cool. All righty. Okay, well, I'm going to let it.
What would your book
as-
be?
Oh, I don't know.
See, you gotta get
I
a
don't know.
book.
I don't know. I don't know. I just I remember at my wedding, listening to everybody talk about me, and I go back and watch those speeches now, and a lot of them feel like I'm being roasted and not actually being,
Oh,
it's I see it from a different point of view now. Like, and I was like, that doesn't sound happy, but I didn't realize it at the time. But then there was the speech by my mother, and there was a speech by my godmother, my Aunt Betty, when we were getting married, and the welcoming speech and welcome to the family kind of thing. And they were saying, "Well, your uncle should do it." And I'm like, "Well, why can't my Aunt Betty do it? I mean, like, I spend more time with her. Why can't a woman do it as opposed to a man?" Now this is like 25 years ago, so here I am already bucking the trend. So I think my title would have to be something. She always said, "You're never going to be bored. It's going to be an interesting ride to Errol. Buckle up, and you're never going to be bored, and it's never going to be a dull moment." She marches to her own tune. So I've always been, a bit of a, I haven't been a rebel, but I've always been well, why not? Why is that the way? Well, why not? What makes it so? Why is it unfair like that? So fairness is my big thing, and why not? And balance. So I think it's, marching to my, a different drum beat or something, or or something that effect, or it's never going to be dull and boring, because I like to laugh a lot. I'm very humorous, so
that is true, and that has been true for our friendship all these years too.
I'm a bit of a roller coaster. A lot more weed than but anyway, but yeah, I don't know. That's a really good one. I was looking at that and I go, "Oh, that's going to be a hard question." I'm going to make sure to ask that to like almost everybody. What would you call your book? See what comes out of that. Alrighty, madam. Well, thank you so much. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't know where this started. I call you Chicklet. You call me Chicky and Chicklet. And I'm like, when did we start doing that? That's been like,
Oh my
that's from
God, I
high
don't even
school.
remember. It is
It's
from
our
high
20s
school.
or something. Is it? I'm like, I don't know why we start doing that, but
I can't remember.
So that was cute. Okay, so I was about to call you Chicklet. I was like, okay, so I'm gonna go. Thank you so much. We may have to do this again because this probably didn't work properly, which is great because it's always great talking to you. And yeah, so I apologize for technical difficulties. Thanks for listening, whoever's watching, because I can't really tell. And it's working at Wednesdays. Get out there and be fabulous. You got this. Bye.
Bye.